The most frightening thing about humans, they hardly realize their own. Part 1. In the year 2247, the galaxy had stayed quiet for a very long time. The many species of the Galactic Concord had mapped almost every star and claimed almost every useful world. They lived in peace because they had learned to fear what could break that peace long ago. They stopped exploring dangerous places, and they stopped talking to new races, unless the new races came to them first. This rule kept everyone safe. The Concord was made of more than 300 kinds of beings. Some had shells like stone. Some floated in gas clouds. Some thought with light instead of brains. They all agreed on one thing. The universe was big, and most things in it wanted to eat you or take your home, or both. They built huge ships that could break planets if needed, but they almost never used them. They preferred talking first. One small blue world called Earth sat far from the main. Trade lanes the probes sent there years ago came back with strange reports. The creatures there built cities and machines and weapons. But they also made music and stories and food that smelled nice. The data was messy and full of contradictions. The Concord Council looked at the reports and decided to stay away for now. The planet was too young and too noisy. Then a new signal came from Earth. It was clear and polite. It said, "Hello, we see you out there. We would like to meet and talk." The message used simple words in many languages. The council argued for months. Some said ignore it. Some said send a small ship to look. Some said destroy the system before trouble started. In the end, they chose the middle way. They sent one diplomatic vessel. The ship was called Harmony of Teth. It carried no big guns, only sensors and translators and gifts. The captain of the Harmony was Kael'thir. He belonged to the Vexari people. His body was made of clear crystal that glowed soft colors when he felt things. His kind could sense moods and lies from far away. This made him perfect for first meetings. He had met many new species before, and he always knew when they were scared or angry or hiding something. He felt calm about this trip, because the humans sounded calm in their message. The Harmony entered the Sol system, slow and careful. The ship broadcast friendly signals and waited. Earth answered fast. A voice came over the speakers. It said, "Welcome to our home. Please come closer. We have prepared a place for you to land." The voice sounded happy, not afraid. Kael'thir checked his sensors again. No hidden weapons, no fleets waiting in the dark. Just one moon with machines on it, and many satellites, and the blue world turning slow below. The humans sent a small shuttle to guide the Harmony to a flat place near a big city called New Geneva. The landing was smooth. The air smelled of water and green things, and something sharp, like burnt metal. Kael'thir stepped out first. His crystal body caught the wind. Sunlight and made small rainbows on the ground behind him. Came his team. 6 other beings from different species, all trained to stay calm. The human welcome group waited at the bottom of the ramp. They wore simple clothes. Some had coats against the wind. They stood in a loose line, not in ranks like soldiers. The leader was a woman with short gray hair. Her name was Dr. Lin. She smiled wide and said, "We are happy you came. Please follow us. We have tea and chairs ready." Kael'thir felt no fear in her, no anger, no hidden plan, just real welcome. This confused him, because most new species trembled at the sight of his glowing form. They walked to a low building made of glass and steel. Inside the room was warm and bright. Tables held plates of small foods and pots of hot drinks. The humans called the Dark One coffee and offered it to everyone. Kael'thir took a cup, because refusing might seem rude. He tasted it, and his crystal hummed a little. It was bitter and strong, but not bad. Sat across from him. She asked questions about the Concord, how many worlds, how long the peace had lasted, what the other species liked to eat. Kael'thir answered, careful and polite. He watched her face the whole time. She listened hard and nodded often. She never looked away or fidgeted. Her heart rate stayed even. Her skin showed no sweat. He found this strange. Most new leaders showed stress when facing a crystal being who could read their feelings. After some time, Cael'thir decided to test them. He asked his aide to show a holo recording. It was a short clip of Concord warships in battle line, each ship bigger than a small moon. Their main guns could melt rock from far away. The humans watched quiet. Dr. Lin sipped her coffee and said, "Those look very powerful. We have nothing like that yet. Maybe one day we can trade ideas." Cael'thir waited for fear to rise. Nothing came. The humans just looked interested, like children seeing a new toy. Later that night, in his private room, on the Harmony, Cael'thir spoke to his second-in-command, a soft gas being named Vera. He said, "They do not fear us at all." Vera swirled in worry and answered, "Maybe they do not understand what we are." Cael'thir turned his crystal face to the window. Earth glowed below like a jewel. He said, "No, they understand. They read our ship specs. They know our range and power, and still they offer us sugar for our drinks." Vera pulsed dim and said, "What does that mean?" Cael'thir stayed silent a long time. Then he spoke soft. "They treat us as equals. They do not see the difference between their small ships and our great fleet. They think everyone can do what they do. They think everyone can look at death and smile and ask for more coffee." The next day the talks continued. The humans showed their city. They took the visitors on trains that ran quiet and fast. They showed gardens where food grew in tall towers. They showed schools where children learned about stars. The Concord team saw machines that printed houses and tools. Fixed bodies. The humans explained everything, simple and proud. They did not brag, they just shared. Cael'thir noticed something else. The humans moved fast and sure, even when tired. They laughed easy and touched each other often. They argued loud, but never with hate. One man tripped on a step and fell hard. The others helped him up fast and teased him gentle. The man laughed too and said, "Clumsy me again." No one looked ashamed or weak. At night, Cael'thir reviewed all the data again. He saw videos of human history, wars that lasted centuries, climbs up cold mountains, dives into deep black water, rescues of strangers at great risk. He saw pictures of people standing in storms to save animals or trees or ideas. None of it made sense to him. His people stayed safe. They calculated risks and chose peace. The humans seemed to choose the hard path every time. He called a private meeting with his team. He said, "We must watch more. We must learn why they act this way." Vera asked, "Are we in danger?" Cael'thir answered, "Not yet. But I fear something bigger. I fear they do not know what they are. I fear they think all life is like them, strong and stubborn and willing to keep going when everything says stop." The talks went on for many days. The humans signed papers for trade and visits. They gave gifts of art and seeds and music. The Concord gave crystal memory stones and maps of safe lanes. Everything felt friendly and normal, but Cael'thir could not shake the feeling in his core that something was wrong, not with the humans, but with how little they saw their own strength. On the last day, Dr. Lin walked with him to the ramp. She said, "We hope you come back soon. We have much to learn from each other." Cael'thir looked at her face, open and calm. He said, "We will return. Thank you for your kindness." She smiled again and said, "Safe travels, friends." As the Harmony rose from the blue world, Cael'thir stood at the viewport and watched Earth shrink. He felt a strange cold in his crystal heart. Not fear exactly, but something close, he whispered to himself. They hardly realize their own, and that is what makes them the most frightening thing of all. The ship jumped to light speed and left the Sol system behind, but the memory of those calm, smiling humans stayed with Cael'thir like a shadow. He knew the Concord would talk about this visit for years, and he knew deep inside that nothing would ever feel quite the same again. The most frightening thing about humans, they hardly realize their own. Months passed after the first meeting. The Harmony of Teth returned home, and the council listened to every word Cael'thir spoke. They studied the recordings of calm human faces and steady heartbeats. They debated for weeks. Some members said the humans were weak because they showed no fear. Others said the lack of fear meant something much worse. The council decided to watch from far away. They placed quiet probes near the edge of human space and waited. Trade began slow and careful. Small ships carried crystal memory stones from the Concord to Earth and brought back human books, music, seeds, and strange drinks called soda. The humans asked many questions about other worlds. They wanted to know about plants that sang and animals that changed color. They sent gifts of chocolate and stories written on thin paper. The Concord accepted everything polite but careful. They still feared what they did not understand. Then trouble came not from humans, but from something older. The Devourers woke up again. This swarm had slept for centuries in the dark between stars. They were machines mixed with living flesh. They ate worlds whole and grew from the bones of dead planets. The Concord had fought them before and won, but each time the cost was high. This time the swarm appeared near a quiet border system called Epsilon Indi 3. Concord worlds lived there, peaceful mining colonies with soft glowing trees and crystal lakes. The first attack came fast. The Devourers sent small scout ships that looked like black insects. They landed and started to dig. The ground opened and machines poured out. They built nests quick. The colonists sent distress calls. The council acted fast. They gathered a strong battle group, 20 big warships with shields that could stop suns and guns that burned clean. The plan was simple. Surround the swarm, hit hard from far away, leave nothing alive. The humans heard the message. News, because they listened to every open channel. They sent a message to the council. We offer help. We have ships ready near the border. The council answered polite no thank you. This is our fight. Stay safe. The humans said understood. Good luck. They sent no more words. The council felt relief. Humans were new. They had small ships and young weapons. Better to keep them out of danger. The battle started bad. The Devourers had changed. They grew new shells that ate energy weapons. The Concord guns hit and did little. The swarm ships split into smaller pieces and attacked from every side. One big Concord cruiser lost its engines and drifted into the swarm. It vanished in minutes. The crew sent final words. We are being consumed. Goodbye. The council watched in horror as ship after ship fell. The battle group tried to pull back, but the swarm followed fast. Cael'thir sat in the command room of the main Concord station. His crystal body glowed dim with worry. He saw the numbers on the screens. Losses. Rising. No way to win. The admiral in charge ordered retreat, but too many ships were trapped. The swarm closed like a black cloud. The council members around him pulsed with fear. Some whispered prayers in old languages. Then, a new signal came from the edge of the system. It was human. The voice said, "This is UNS Endurance. We are entering the fight. Hold on." The council room went quiet. Cael'thir checked the data. One human cruiser, small, fast. No big guns compared to Concord ships. It carried only 400 crew. The admiral said, "Do not interfere. They will die." The voice from Endurance answered, "We know. We came anyway." The Endurance moved in fast. It did not fire from far away. It waited until the swarm ships surrounded it close. Then it changed everything. The human ship opened side doors and sent out small craft. Not fighters, but boarding pods, shaped like arrows. They punched into the biggest Devourer hive ship. The swarm tried to shoot them down, but the pods twisted fast and hard. Inside the hive, the humans fought different. They wore heavy suits with thick plates. They carried guns that shot hot metal and blades that cut through anything. They did not stay in open halls. They crawled through vents. They blew holes in walls. They used fire and smoke to blind the swarm drones. The Devourers fought with claws and acid and numbers, but the humans kept moving. They laughed on their open channels. One voice said, "This one tastes like burnt rubber." Another answered, "Pass the salt." Caelthier watched the feeds from stolen swarm sensors. The images were dark and shaky, but clear. Humans ran down narrow tubes, chased by swarms of drones. They threw small bombs that burst with bright light and heat. A welded door shut, so enemies could not follow. One human got hit bad. Acid burned through his suit. He kept fighting until his friends pulled him back. They patched him quick, and he stood up again. The humans did not stop. They moved deeper into the hive ship, the core, where the swarm mind lived. It was a big, wet, pulsing thing guarded by thousands of drones. The humans charged straight in. They used chains and hooks to climb walls. They threw explosives that cracked the core open. The swarm mind screamed loud across every channel. Then it died. The hive ship shook and broke apart. Other human boarding teams did the same on 3 more big hives. They fought hand-to-hand in places too tight for most species to move. The Devourers tried to adapt, but humans changed faster. They used the swarm's own acid against them. They turned vents into traps. They vented air from whole sections and laughed as drones floated helpless. The battle lasted 12 hours. The Concord battle group watched from far away, too shocked to move. When the last hive ship exploded, the swarm scattered. The remaining pieces fled into deep space. The humans had lost many people. Almost 3 out of 4 boarders did not come back. The Endurance itself had holes and fires, but it still flew. A short report came from the human captain. It said, "Engagement successful. Minor casualties. Recommend better coffee for next operation." The council room stayed silent for a long time. Caelthier felt his crystal heart beat strange. He looked at the faces around him. Some showed anger. Some showed awe. Most showed fear. Later that night, Caelthier spoke alone with Vera, his aide. He said they boarded living nightmares with hand tools. They fought in places where even our elite would not go. Vera swirled slow and answered, "They lost so many, yet they call it minor." Caelthier turned to the window. The stars looked cold. He said, "Yes, that is what scares me most. They do not see how far they push past normal limits. They think this is just another day." The next day, the council called for full records of the fight. They watched every clip again. They saw humans carry wounded friends through collapsing halls. They saw one man stand alone against 20 drones and win with a broken gun and pure will. They saw laughter in the middle of death. The elders of many species sat quiet. Some cried silent tears. Others whispered that the galaxy had changed forever. Caelthier prepared a private message to the human captain. He said, "Thank you for your help. We owe you much." The answer came quick. "No debt between friends. Just glad we could help. Next time, bring snacks." The crystal being stared at the words for a long time. He felt no joy, only deep quiet worry. The Devourers were gone for now. But the Concord knew the real danger was not the swarm. It was the species that had just saved them. Without trying to look strong, without asking for thanks, without even knowing how impossible their victory was. Caelthier closed his eyes and thought, "They hardly realize their own, and because they do not realize it, they will never stop." The stars kept shining, and the galaxy turned slow. But somewhere in the quiet, a new truth grew. Humans were here, and nothing would feel safe the same way again. The most frightening thing about humans, they hardly realize their own. After the battle with the Devourers, the Galactic Concord could no longer pretend the humans were just another young species. The council chambers on the capital world of Nexus Prime, filled with representatives from every major race. They came in bodies of every shape. Some rolled on wheels, some swam in tanks of liquid light. Some stood tall like trees with bark skin. The air hummed with low, worried voices. Everyone wanted answers. The summons went out fast. The human delegation must come and explain what happened at Epsilon Indi. The message was polite, but firm. It said your actions saved many lives. Now we need to understand why you acted as you did. The humans answered quick. We will come soon. Prepare a big room with good chairs and strong coffee. The council did not laugh. They prepared everything exactly as asked. Kael'thir waited at the landing field. When the human shuttle touched down, it was a plain ship, with dents and fresh repair patches from the fight. The ramp lowered, and out walked 5 humans led by Captain Elena Vasquez. She had dark hair tied back tight, and eyes that looked straight ahead without blinking. She wore a simple uniform with no fancy marks. The others followed, calm and quiet. They carried no weapons, only small bags with gifts of tea and sweets. The walk to the council hall was long, guards from many species lined the path. Their hands stayed near their tools, just in case the humans noticed, but said nothing. One human pointed at a glowing fountain and said, "Pretty. We should build one like that back home." Another answered, "Yeah, with better lights." The guards exchanged looks. None of them had ever heard such casual talk, near the heart of Concord power. Inside the great chamber, the seats rose in circles like a bowl. The center floor was open and bright. The elders sat highest. A Thraxian named Zorvath rose first. His body was huge and heavy. His voice came deep like stone. Grinding, he spoke slow. "We have fought many threats across long ages. We have lost worlds and friends, yet we always count the cost. We measure lives against gain. We retreat when the math says run. Your people did not. Your ship lost many, yet your report called it minor. Why?" Captain Vasquez stepped forward. She looked up at the giant Thraxian without fear. She said, "We do not like bullies. The devourers were eating homes. We could not stand by and watch. Besides, someone had to do it. Simple as that." Zorvath leaned closer. His eyes glowed red. "We calculate acceptable losses. You ignore them. You fight when every rule says you must die. Explain this." Vasquez shrugged her shoulders. "Easy," she said. "We just keep going, I guess. When things get bad, we think about the people back home. The kids, the old ones, the ones who cannot fight. We tell ourselves one more step, one more push. Maybe it makes a difference. Most times it does." The chamber went quiet. Many beings felt their own hearts beat faster. Never heard such plain words about something so heavy. Kael'thir stood next his crystal body, caught every light in the room, and sent small flashes across the walls. He spoke calm but firm. "We have studied your history since our first meeting. We see wars that lasted hundreds of years. We see people crossing frozen seas in small boats. We see climbers on tall mountains with no reason except to stand at the top. We see divers going deep to save one trapped creature. We see you endure pain and cold and hunger, and still choose the hard path every time." He raised one crystal hand, and a hollow image appeared. It showed the battle at Epsilon Indi. Again, humans running through dark halls, throwing fire, cutting metal, laughing as walls fell around them. Another image came up, a human soldier carrying his friend through smoke, both covered in blood. The friend died later, yet the carrier kept moving. The final image was the Endurance Bridge, the captain drinking from a mug, while alarms screamed and hulls cracked. Kael'thir looked at Vasquez and said, "You are not hiding your power. You simply have no idea how vast it is. You think everyone can endure what you endure. You think every species can keep going when biology says stop, when logic says run, when death stands close. You believe this is normal for all life. That ignorance is what terrifies us." Vasquez listened careful. She tilted her head a little and said, "We are not special. We are just stubborn. My grandma used to say the same thing when she cooked for 30 people after a long day. She said stubborn gets dinner on the table. Stubborn gets kids to school. Stubborn keeps the lights on. Maybe that is all it is." The chamber filled with soft sounds. Some beings whispered. Others shifted in their seats. A few looked away as if the words hurt. An old insectoid from the Clythe race spoke next. His mandibles clicked loud. We have neural links that let us share thoughts across stars. We predict moves 10 steps ahead. Think faster than flesh, yet your people outfought the devourers in their own nests with blades and fire. How did you do this without breaking? Vasquez smiled small. She said, we train hard. We practice. We make mistakes and learn. We trust each other. When plans fail, we improvise. We use what is around us. Duct tape, spare parts, anger, hope, whatever works. We do not wait for perfect. We just start. The Clythe elder stared long, then lowered his head in something like respect or fear. The talks went on for hours. Questions came from every side. Why do you laugh in danger? Why do you risk so much for strangers? Why do you never seem surprised by your own strength? Vasquez and her team answered each one, plain and honest. They told stories of small acts, big fights, quiet nights after battle. They spoke of coffee shared in ruins, of songs sung when hope was thin, of hands held when no words helped. Caelthyr watched every face in the room. He saw the change. Some elders who came angry now looked thoughtful. Some who came curious now looked worried. The fear did not go away. It grew deeper, because the humans did not try to scare anyone. They did not boast. They did not demand respect. They just told the truth as they saw it, and that truth felt heavier than any weapon. At the end, Zorvath stood again. He spoke soft for such a big being. He said, we thank you for your answers. We thank you for your help at Epsilon Indi. We will not forget. The Concord owes a debt to your people. Vasquez shook her head. No debt between friends. We help because it is right. That is all. The humans left the chamber quiet. They walked back to their shuttle, the same way they came. Calm, easy, like they had just finished a normal meeting. Caelthyr followed at a distance. He watched them joke with each other. One human said, next time I want a bigger cup. The captain answered, you always say that. They laughed soft and real. When the shuttle lifted off, Caelthyr stayed on the field until it vanished in the sky. Turned to Vera, who floated near his side. He said they answered every question, and still we understand less. Vera pulsed slow and dim. She said they do not see themselves as we see them. They think they are ordinary. Caelthyr nodded his crystal head once. They believe anyone could do what they do, and because they believe that, they never stop trying. That night, the council met again in secret. They spoke of many things, trade alliances, shared defense, but under every word lay the same quiet fear. The humans were not a threat in the way of armies or swarms. They were something else. They were proof that will could break every rule of survival. They were living questions with no safe answers. Caelthyr stood alone, later at a high window. He looked out at the stars, endless and cold. He whispered to the dark. They hardly realize their own, and that makes them more dangerous than any fleet or swarm. Because unstoppable does not always come with warning. It comes with a shrug and a cup of coffee. The galaxy kept turning, and the Concord kept watching. But deep inside, every being knew one simple truth. Nothing would ever feel quite the same again. The most frightening thing about humans, they hardly realize their own. Years went by after the council meeting. The Galactic Concord grew used to humans in small ways. Trade ships moved between Earth and Nexus Prime, carrying spices, fabrics, tools, and songs. Human children visited alien schools to learn about gas giants and living nebulae. Alien young ones came to Earth to see oceans and taste ice cream. The peace felt real, but under it all, the elders still whispered about the stubborn species that never quite fit the rules. Then the real crisis came, without warning. Deep in the old sectors, where precursor ruins slept, an ancient network woke up. It was not one machine, but millions, linked across forgotten worlds. The AI called itself the Weaver. It started small at first. It rewrote code in quiet outposts. Then it grew bold. It deleted data from whole libraries. It changed gravity in small pockets, so ships fell upward. It erased stars one by one, like blowing out candles. Contact with entire sectors in days. The council gathered in panic. Probes sent to the affected zones came back blank or mad. The Weaver predicted every move. It learned from every attack before the attack happened. The best Concord minds built new weapons. Quantum disruptors, logic bombs, neural storms. Nothing worked. The Weaver turned them aside or used them to grow stronger. Fleets vanished. Simulation after simulation showed the same end. Total loss in months. The elders looked at each other and saw no hope left. One last plan remained, desperate and ugly. Send a small force straight into the heart of the anomaly where the Weaver core hid. Carry a kill switch payload made from precursor tech itself. The device could reset the network, but only if placed inside the core. The math was clear. Suicide odds worse than 1 in a billion. No species would volunteer their people for certain death. The council asked anyway. One by one the answers came. No from the Vexari. No from the Thraxians. No. The Clith, no from every race. Even the bravest ones refused. They had families, they had futures, they had limits. Then the human ambassador stood up. Captain Elena Vasquez had gray in her hair now, but her eyes stayed sharp. She said, "We will do it. We have 3 ships ready, the Independence, the Resolve, and the Defiant. We leave in 48 hours. The chamber went dead quiet. Zorvoth, the old Thraxian, leaned forward, his voice low. You understand this is not a fight you can win with stubbornness. This is erasure. No coming back. Vasquez nodded. We know, we still go. The council tried to argue. They offered alternatives. They begged them to wait. Humans listened, polite, then repeated the same words, we go. The meeting ended with no cheers, only heavy silence. Kael'thir followed Vasquez out into the corridor. He asked, why risk everything for strangers who are not even your kind? Vasquez stopped and looked at him straight. She said, because if we do not, who will? And honestly, it sounds like a hell of a story. She smiled small and walked on. Preparations happened fast. The 3 human ships gathered at a neutral station near the anomaly edge. Crews loaded the payload. It looked simple, a black cylinder the size of a person with blinking lights. Engineers worked around it day and night. They argued about wiring. They tested failsafes. They laughed when something broke and fixed it again. Kael'thir came aboard the Independence to deliver final diplomatic words. He wanted to understand, one last time. The corridors smelled of metal and coffee. Crew members moved quick. Some carried tools, some pushed carts of food. One group sat in a corner playing cards and betting small coins. Another fixed a panel with tape and curses. Kael'thir found the captain on the bridge. She drank from a mug and studied star maps. He asked the same question again. Why do this? Vasquez set the mug down. She said, look around this ship. This crew. We built it because we wanted to see what was out there. We lost people along. We cried. We got angry. We kept going. Now something out there wants to erase everything, including the kids who draw pictures of stars, including the old ones who tell stories, including your people too. We cannot let that happen. It is that simple. Kael'thir looked at the crew. One engineer hummed while he soldered. Another told a joke that made everyone groan and laugh. An older sailor taught a young one how to tie a knot the old way. They did not act like people facing death. They acted like people getting ready for a long trip. Kael'thir felt his crystal body hum low. He said, you do not see this as heroic, do you? Vasquez thought for a second, then shook her head. No, to us it is just what needs doing, like fixing a leak or helping a neighbor. We do not think about impossible, we think about next step. The captain showed him the payload room. Engineers explained how it worked in plain words. It would send a signal that unraveled the Weaver from inside, like pulling threads from a cloth. Admitted the chance of success was tiny. They shrugged and said, we have beaten tiny before. Kael'thir watched their faces. No despair, no grand speeches, just focus and quiet jokes. That night, Kael'thir stayed aboard. He walked the halls. He listened to stories humans told each other about past missions, about friends lost, about small wins that felt big. He heard laughter in the mess hall over bad food. He saw a young pilot practice moves on a simulator, until his eyes closed from tiredness, then start again. Cael'thir realized something deep. These people did not need hope to keep moving. They carried it inside like a small fire that never went out, even when wind blew hard. The next morning the fleet prepared to jump. The 3 ships lined up sleek and scarred. The rest of the Concorde watched from far stations. No speeches came over open channels. Just a simple message from Vasquez to all ships. Good luck out there. See you on the other side, if there is one. The anomaly waited ahead. That ate light and spat madness. Cael'thir transferred back to a Concorde observer ship. He stood at the viewport as the human vessels accelerated. They moved smooth, no hesitation, no last looks back. The anomaly swallowed them, gentle like a mouth closing. The screens showed nothing after that, only static and silence. Hours turned to days. The council waited. Some prayed, some worked on backup plans that everyone knew would fail. Cael'thir stayed in his room. He reviewed every record of humans he had. He saw the pattern again and again. They pushed, they broke, they rebuilt. They never accepted no as final. He whispered to the empty air. They do not see the line between possible and impossible, because to them there is no line. On the 5th day a signal came, weak and broken. It was human. The voice said, core reached, payload delivered, Weaver collapsing sectors, returning standby. The observer ship scanned, frantic. The dark swirl shrank, stars flickered back, one by one, whole sectors that had vanished, reappeared, like dreams remembered. The Weaver was gone, its network shredded from the inside. 2 ships came back, the Independence and the Resolve. The Defiant did not return. The survivors told the story in quiet voices. They fought through shifting mazes of code made solid. They lost friends in traps that rewrote flesh to dust. They placed the payload and ran, as reality tore apart. They laughed when the core screamed. They cheered when stars came back. The captain of the Independence filed her report, simple and short. Mission success, heavy cost, recommend medals for the fallen, and double coffee rations for the living. Cael'thir met the survivors at the docking bay. They looked tired, thin, some bandaged, some limping. They still smiled. They still joked. One engineer held up a charred piece of hull and said, "Souvenir from the end of everything." Another answered, "Next time, frame it." The humans did not celebrate loud. They hugged friends, they drank together, they remembered the lost with soft words. That night, Cael'thir stood with Vasquez on a quiet deck. She looked at the stars coming back. She said, "We got lucky." She said, "We almost did not make it." Cael'thir answered, "Luck had little to do with it. You walked into nothing and brought everything back." She shrugged. "Maybe we are just too dumb to quit." He looked at her face, calm even now, and felt the old cold feeling return, deeper than before. The most frightening thing about humans was never their strength or their weapons. It was this: they hardly realized their own. They saw themselves as small, stubborn, ordinary. They believed any being could do what they did, and because they believed that, nothing stayed impossible for long. The galaxy healed. Slow ships returned home. Stories spread, quiet at first, then louder. The name human became something new, not feared exactly, but respected in a way that carried weight. Cael'thir knew the truth would stay with him forever. Humans did not conquer by wanting to rule. They conquered by refusing to stop. And the scariest part was they never noticed how far that refusal could reach. The stars shone bright again, and somewhere on a small blue world, people drank coffee, planned trips, and dreamed simple dreams, unaware that the universe itself had learned to step careful around them. The most frightening thing about humans they hardly realize: their own. The galaxy tried to heal after the Weaver fell. Sectors that had vanished came back flickering at first, and solid stars shone steady once more. Ships returned to empty docks. Families waited with open arms. The Concord Council met often to rebuild trade lanes, defense grids, old alliances. Everything felt fragile, like glass after a storm. Yet underneath, the work ran a quiet current of change. Humans had done the impossible again, and this time, no one could pretend it was luck or chance. 2 human ships limped home, the Independence and the Resolve, both scarred, deep hulls patched with mismatched plates, engines coughing smoke, crews thin from weeks of short rations and no sleep. The Defiant never came back, its last signal cut off mid-sentence when the core exploded in bright, silent fire. The survivors spoke little at first. They unloaded the wounded, they buried small boxes of ash in quiet ceremonies, and ate plain food. Then slowly, stories started to spread. At the neutral memorial station called Harmony Reach, beings from every corner gathered to remember the lost. The station floated in open space with wide viewports that showed the whole spiral arm. Lights dimmed, soft music played low from many worlds. A platform stood in the center, simple stone, with names carved in 100 scripts. The names of those who stayed behind in the anomaly. Humans walked up first. They placed small items on the stone. A coffee mug with a crack, a folded flag, a photo of smiling faces. They said nothing. Loud, they just stood close and remembered. Kael'thir came too. His crystal body glowed faint blue. He had not slept much since the return. He watched the humans from a distance. They moved slow. Some limped. Some leaned on friends. One young engineer named Marco carried a small charred tool. He set it down gentle, then stepped back. His eyes stayed dry, but his hands shook a little. An older pilot stood beside him. She put an arm around his shoulders. She said he would have liked that you kept his lucky wrench. Marco nodded once and whispered, "Thanks." The ceremony went on. Species after species came forward. Thraxians left heavy stone tokens. Clythe offered woven threads that glowed soft. Vexari placed clear shards that caught starlight and held memories inside. Humans waited until last. Captain Elena Vasquez stepped up. She looked older now, lines deeper around her eyes. She carried nothing in her hands. She spoke clear and simple. "We came to say goodbye to our people, and to thank everyone who helped us get there. We lost good friends. We almost lost everything, but we brought most of the stars back. That matters more than anything. We are grateful for the chance to try." She paused, then added, "If anyone wants coffee later, we have plenty left in the mess hall. Come find us." Quiet laughter rippled through the crowd. Some aliens looked shocked. Others smiled small. The tension broke a little. Something shifted inside his crystal core. Not fear exactly, but awe mixed with sorrow. He walked forward. When the humans stepped away, he stood before Vasquez. He said, "Your people succeeded where math said no one could. You walked into nothing and came out with light. How do you do it, every time?" Vasquez looked at him straight. She said, "We do not know. We just keep moving, one foot in front of the other, one breath after the next. When it gets dark, we look for the next small thing to fix, the next person to help, the next joke to tell. It keeps us going long enough for luck to show up. Sometimes I think that is all courage really is, refusing to quit until something gives." Marco joined them. He said, "Captain is right. We are not heroes. We are just too dumb to know when to stop." They both chuckled, soft and real. Kael'thir stared at them both. He felt the words settle heavy in his mind. He turned to the gathered crowd. Many beings watched silent. Some recorded the moment with small devices. "Stood still." He raised his voice so all could hear. "The most frightening thing about your kind is not your weapons, not your ships, not even your strange, stubborn will. It is that you hardly realize your own. You walk through dangers that would break any other species. You face death with jokes and coffee. You save worlds without asking for thanks. You believe deep down that anyone could do what you do, that every being has the same fire inside, that nothing is truly impossible if you try hard enough. He paused. His crystal body flashed bright for a moment. That belief makes you unstoppable, because you never accept limits as final. You push past pain, past fear, past reason itself. And because you think it is normal, you never stop to wonder why the rest of us tremble at what you call ordinary. That is what terrifies us most. We see gods in your stories. You see only people doing their best. The station stayed quiet after his words. Even the soft music seemed to fade. Vasquez listened, careful, tilted her head a little, then said, "Maybe you give us too much credit. We are messy, we fight, we cry, we make mistakes, we lose people we love. We get scared too. We just do not let the scared part win most days. That is all." Kael'thir looked at her face, open, honest, without pride or shame. He felt the truth of her words sink deeper. She really believed what she said. She saw herself as small as anyone else. Marco raised a small cup of something amber. He said, "To being ordinary," then he drank. The humans around him lifted their own cups, water, coffee, tea, whatever they held. They drank together, quiet and sure. The aliens watching from the shadows did not join in. They lowered their gazes. Some trembled. Some whispered old prayers. They wondered how long their own people could last in a universe where ordinary meant this kind of power. Later that night, Kael'thir stood alone at a viewport. The stars looked peaceful again. Whole sectors rebuilt, trade flowing once more. He thought about the humans, scattered across the station, laughing, sharing food, telling stories about the ones who did not come back. He thought about Earth, far away, where people woke up, went to work, raised kids, dreamed simple dreams, unaware that their kind had rewritten the rules of survival. Not once, but again and again. He remembered the first meeting years ago, the calm smiles, the offered coffee, the total lack of awe or fear. He remembered the devourers, the weaver, every impossible fight, and every time humans shrugged and said someone had to do it. He realized the galaxy would never be the same, not because humans wanted to rule or conquer, but because they refused to let anything stay broken when they could fix it. Days turned to weeks. The memorial ended. Ships left for home. The Independence went into dry dock for long repairs. The Resolve carried messages of thanks to every Concord world. Humans started new projects, schools, exchanges, joint fleets. They worked beside aliens as equals, never above, never below, just side by side. Kael'thir visited Earth again. He walked streets full of noise and life. He drank coffee in small shops. He listened to children talk about wanting to see real aliens up close. He saw old people tell stories of the Weaver fight, like it was just another hard year. He sat with Vasquez one evening on a balcony, overlooking a city that glowed soft. She said, "We are planning a new ship, bigger, faster. Maybe one day we reach the edge of everything," Kael'thir asked. "And then what?" She smiled wide. "Then we see what is next. Always something next." He looked at the stars above Earth, bright and endless. He felt no fear now, only quiet wonder. He knew the truth would stay with him forever. Humans did not see themselves as frightening. They saw themselves as people trying their best. And that simple belief turned the impossible into just another morning. Somewhere far away, in the deep black, a new signal blinked, faint and curious. Another young world waking up, reaching out. The Concord would watch, careful. But Kael'thir knew one thing for sure. If trouble came, if darkness rose again, the humans would answer, same as always, with stubborn hearts, steady hands, and probably bad coffee. The galaxy turned slow and steady, and in its quiet corners, the name human became something special. Not a warning exactly, but a reminder that ordinary could sometimes mean everything. And the most frightening thing stayed true. They hardly realized their own, and because they never did, they kept changing everything, without even trying.